I want to talk a bit about how the decision-making is made around the number of officers deployed to police protest. So, obviously, we speak here a lot about choices, and you've used the phrase a couple of times here already around the tough choices that's made. So I just wondered what risk assessment is made in terms of policing protests in the city, specifically in use of time, specifically around the Defend Our Juries protest, because we've seen the same people holding similar signs in Truro, where Devon and Cornwall police made the decision not to arrest anyone. So just wondering why we've seen that disparity between here and other places around the country.
I'm not going to speak for other forces. If people are choosing to break terrorism legislation, they should get arrested. So the Defend Our Juries events are... So it's all based on the intelligence beforehand. How big is it going to be? How volatile is it going to be? What's the likelihood of offending? And you're resourcing against your anticipation of that. Our ability to predict is quite good, but we don't always get it right. I mean, the Unite the Kingdom event was a lot bigger than we anticipated and bigger than previous events organised by the same people and more volatile than the previous 2 or 3 events as well. So that was challenging. In terms of the Defend Our Juries and the sort of terrorist defending in support of a prescribed terrorist group, Palestine Action, it's very obvious beforehand what their intention is. So we resource against that intention. So it's a big demand, but the planning of that is fairly straightforward. We're also not just resourcing to deal with people who are looking to get arrested for expressing support. We've also seen smaller groups around them looking to get into conflict and violence, so groups such as Youth Demand associated with it. So that's also affected the resourcing picture.
So, in terms of, do you agree that it's a choice being made in terms of, and is there an operational order to arrest people holding the signs as part of the Defend Our Juries? Because it just is interesting that in other places they haven't made that same decision.
In the vast majority of places they have done. There'll always be a surprise moment where maybe a force isn't actually prepared for it or ready for it because of resources, and then they'll follow up and do a reactive investigation on the back of it. So even in those cases, there will be follow-up investigations. But it is a significant offence supporting a prescribed terrorist organisation, and therefore we've made the decision that we have to follow through on that. Otherwise, there's no point having terrorist legislation if you're going to ignore some of the offending around it.
So then, in terms of in terms of what you're saying about risk, so you said about volume and then violence. Yes. What was the second one? What was the second?
This was my sort of paraphrasing it. Obviously, how big something is affects how much you might need to put around it. How volatile it is. So is it likely to be disorderly or not, or with particular intent on violence? Thirdly, sort of any other intelligence about intents to break the law, because like the Palestine Action one. But there are other factors in this as well, like counter-protests and what that might generate, and what other events are nearby, and what other sort of collisions between events are possible.
Have you reviewed it for the large Palestine solidarity campaigns, the coalition ones? Have you been constantly reviewing it in terms of those criteria?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'd be confident that sort of the scale of the resources associated with those has gone down over time as they've got more routine and less volatile. In the first few months, each of those Palestine solidarity campaigns tended to have tens of arrests for violence and or support of Hamas and Hezbollah. That has tended to subside over the last couple of years, and so that has affected our resourcing of it. So yeah,
because I think that needs to be. And then just quickly on conditions, do you have any comments on the proportionality of conditions used for the Palestine Solidarity Campaign marches? In the specific condition that I'm interested in is the one where the Met conditioned that they weren't allowed to use percussive and drum instruments because it would disrupt business, but they were planning to hold a protest on a Friday at 6 p.m. on a bank holiday. So I just wondered how that decision was made.
This might sound clear, but last time I checked, London was a 24/7 city. We have put conditions on Palestine Solidarity Campaign, particularly based on two issues of communities. So we have two powers to put conditions on. One is fear of violence. The second one is serious disruption to the life of the community. Those are the two criteria upon which we might then put conditions on. With Palestine Solidarity Campaign, it's largely been about serious disruption to the life of the community. And the two communities we've tended to take most account of have been the Jewish communities, which has affected routes, and given they're doing most of their marches on Saturday, a day of religious observance for Jewish communities, keeping them away from synagogues, etc. And secondly, business communities. And so we've been particularly insistent on issues like varying the route so the same businesses aren't affected every second week and things like that. So we've taken account of both of those to use our powers.
It was actually more specifically about that one on Bank Holiday Friday, but yeah, thank you, Chair.